Hi, Finding Clarity group. It's Leah. How are you today? Hopefully, some people will hop on live. I had made zero announcements about me doing this today, um, which is just going to be the way it is for the most part because that's how I roll. It's kind of warm now. Oh, it was a little chilly this morning. Now it feels kind of warm. I came on last week and talked about my gratitude for an amazing visit with Grandpa Lee, with my father, and shared some pretty personal stuff about him and our situation. And then, just the gratitude of the conversation that he and I have been able to have, the conversations that we've been able to have, because they're not, I've had some people reach out to me since then that saw that and were like, that's never going to happen with my parents. I'm never going to be able to have that kind of dialogue with my parents where they say, first of all, that, yeah, my upbringing was fucked up. Shit that happened to me was not normal or shouldn't have happened. And yes, that was abuse. And yes, that was traumatic. That in and of itself, being able to look at their own life and admitting that maybe it wasn't the good upbringing that they thought that it was, is hard. And then to turn that around and look at what they did when they raised their children is even harder. I truly believe we're all doing the best we can with what we have, for sure. But when you know better, you get to do better. And some people just don't want to know better. It's really hard. So that's kind of what leads me into the conversations that we'll be going forward with. Calling it option A and option B because it really is so in my face in my life. I see it so clear as day. I have my mother and my father. Option A or option B. These two people are both the same age. She's 74, he's about to be 75. And they are literal opposites. Okay. And there's a lot of reasons. I can't point to one thing and say, here it is. They both had traumatic upbringings. They both lived through abusive situations. They both had, a different way of dealing with it. And now, because of the way they lived their lives, they both live completely differently. So for those of you who do not know, and I will cover this very quickly, my mother lives with me. She's under my care. Thankfully, I have help for the first time ever because it's harder than it's ever been. Her cognition is up and down and progressively getting worse. Most of the day she knows who I am, but she doesn't always know my name. She does not know my kids' names and doesn't even always know that they live here. Like last night, she was like, "Oh, there's some people in the backyard there," and I was like, "Yeah, those are our kids. They live here." She's like, "Oh, okay." She's physically incapable of walking on her own. She uses a walker. When she first moved in with me, she was in a wheelchair, so we're grateful she can walk. But the reason she was in a wheelchair wasn't so much that she couldn't walk, it was that she shouldn't walk. And I'll get into some of that today. This actually may be longer than just one video because I don't want to talk for like 15, 20 minutes, and I definitely could about these subjects. So just real quick, I want to talk about how I'm calling this the physical body because we have several bodies. We cannot see them all, but we have, and I call it body because it's the easiest way for us to conceptualize with our little bitty human brain. So we have our physical body. That's the easiest one to see. We can see our physical body, but we can't see our mental body, but we know we have one because we think, right? That's our mental body. We can't see our emotional body, but we know we have one because we feel emotions, whether we're checked in or not, they're there, whether you are acknowledging them and allowing them or not, which is what I get into in my yoga stuff and meditation. But a spiritual body, a connection to something greater than yourself is not something that you can necessarily see. And all of those different bodies are a part of our human experience. And I'm going to start with the physical body. So my father, Lee, and my mother, Sarah, both grew up in the same era. They were both born in the 40s. They both grew up pretty poor. Um, they both grew up with, uh, well, I don't think Lee's father was an alcoholic, but he was a rageaholic. My mother's father was an alcoholic and was distant. He was sometimes not even there. He would just disappear and go off and drink and be gone for a long time, which I didn't even know until my cousin shared that with me within the last couple of years. Um, Lee's father was a rageaholic and would verbally abuse them and was distant. Obviously, there was no connection to their fathers. My mother's father died when she was like 12 because he was literally almost 30 years older than her mother. He wasn't a bad man. He adopted her mother's son from a previous marriage. I believe everybody does the best they can with what they have, and I believe he did. He just didn't have the capacity to deal with life without drinking. He moved here from Scotland, so let's blame his Scottish roots. um, and when he passed away, it was my mom that did the caretaking. So we're talking 11, 12-year-old girl taking care of I don't know how old he was when he died, 60 something probably, maybe 50s. I think her mom was probably 30. So he was probably, you know, yeah, because her mom was like, oh hell, I don't know, 20 something when they met. So yeah. Anyway, not the point. The point is we're talking about an 11, 12-year-old girl taking care of a 60 something, probably year old man, watching him die. And it was her dad. And she had rarely known him much before that. Um, so yeah, that's pretty traumatic. Then she had some pretty traumatic experiences after that that are very personal, and led to an injury that she received in her early 20s. Now, she claims that she was injured um, on a football game. She was hit by the football player on the sidelines and it hurt her back. Okay. And that was the start of her downfall because she didn't actually treat the physical body. Now, I'll get into this as these videos go on, but she also had all of that trauma from her childhood that, that lives in our fascia, that lives in our bodies. But in spite of that, even if that was totally fine and she just had this physical trauma, she did not get that taken care of at that time. She didn't do the physical therapy. She didn't get into the exercise. She actually told me that she started taking aspirin like every hour. She would take as many aspirin as she could. And that was the beginning of her Band-Aid method that she lived with for the rest of her life up until literally right before she moved in here with me 5 years ago. She took pills, a lot of them. Before she got prescription pills, she took aspirin or Tylenol or whatever to excess. By the way, her liver's in great shape, which is, like whatever. It's so bizarre. Her liver's in great shape. So what I'll get to that. So she never dealt with healing the physical wounds that she received. And she very rarely exercised. She would start like a little exercise program and then she would quit. We did that all the time when I was growing up. She got into water aerobics for a little while because it was easy, and then she found a reason to quit. She just wasn't into that. So now she cannot walk upright. She has severe arthritis, like to the point that her current doctor saw an x-ray and thought she had what's called a vascular necrosis, which is where the bones are dead. And I had to take her to a specialist who said, no, that's not what that is. It looks like it, but it is just severe arthritis. It is so bad. She's got her hips, like everything. Thankfully, she's not feeling any pain because she doesn't have much connection to her body anymore because her cognition is gone. So, like, does pain exist if you can't feel it? I don't know. But anyway, so that's her physical body story. Lee, however, through his trauma, found exercise. Now, this was his way of coping with his trauma. So it wasn't always a really good way to do it. He would push himself too hard, and he actually did injure himself also. He lifted really heavy weights, like as heavy as he could get, because he had to get back at all the bullies that had kicked his ass when he was a kid. You know, he was severely abused by all kinds of people, not just his father, his brother, his brother's friends, like all kinds of people had abused him. And he had all of this anger built up that he then put to the weights. Well, he was lifting really heavy one time and he pulled in his low back and it became sciatic, and it was re-triggered. You know, he'd let that heal and then it would be re-triggered, and he'd let that heal and be re-triggered. He also got into running, some kind of super fast paced or distance type thing where he would go for a really long time to get that runner's high. And he was into karate. He was the karate guy. But when his sciatic situation got really bad, he knew he had to get that looked at. And he went to a doctor who gave him some really great advice, and he actually listened. The doctor was like, yeah, I mean, I can do all the things. I could give you the shots. We could do the steroids. We could do all that other stuff, which, by the way, is what my mom did. She would get the little injections every month. She would get, which, like steroid injections or numbing injections and all that kind of stuff. But this doctor said, or you could start this newfangled, trendy thing called core training. And Lee looked into it. He was like, okay, well, I don't want surgery. I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing that. I'll look into this. And he started core training, I guess it was like 30 years ago or something. It was like in his 40s, and he hasn't stopped. Once or twice a day, he pops it down on the ground and does his core exercises, and he has still not had to have a back surgery. He did have a hip replacement because he still got arthritis, but because he was very physically active, he wanted it. You know, he wanted to be free of that arthritic pain. My mom is not physically active, so the doctor doesn't see any reason to replace her hip. Like, why bother? She's not doing anything but walking anyway, and it doesn't bother her, so why bother? Whereas he's, you know, he was a runner and a biker and an elliptical machine and all those things. And when he started to have the hip pain, he wanted to replace it. So he did, and he recovered from that beautifully. But the core training direction was what really saved the sciatic pain and saved him from the surgery very early on, and potentially that lifelong situation. My mom has had lumbar fusions, you know, with the vertebrae fusions. I'm seriously, y'all, she's had all the surgeries you can possibly get to try to fix the pain, but she never did the exercise to fix the pain. So what is the option A and option B here? It's pretty obvious. Option A, you go to the fucking doctor and you tell him, fix me, doctor. I can't do anything. Option B is you take personal responsibility over your body and you say, I have this situation, I have this issue, I have this ailment, I have this whatever it is, and what can I do? What proactive actions can I take right now to help heal this? And I promise you, it's almost always going to be a form of exercise or movement or something. So, yay, I'm getting hearts from Crystal. That makes my day. So me, we get to look at ourselves right now, wherever you're at in your life. You could be in your 20s, you could be in your 40s, you could be in your 60s, and you can still make changes. Do not think that you've gotten too far to help yourself, because you're not. Option A, going to the doctor and letting them do it for you, is going to end with issues like cognition, issues like can't walk, issues like, it very rarely ends in death, is my point. You know, I think a lot of people really think, I'll just probably die early, like whatever. You know, I don't know. I hear that from people. They feel like that, but that's not everybody's maybe conscious thought. But that's not the case. That's not the case. You'll live a long time, probably, maybe even a whole decade, with no memory and with no ability to move your body. Okay. So I highly, highly, highly suggest to people at any stage in life right now, no matter where you are at, to take back that personal responsibility, to take back that charge of your life, to say what kind of, even if it's just going for a walk every couple of days, even if it's just getting on the little pedals on the floor at night, even if it's just yoga, okay, which doesn't have to be real exercisey, but actually can increase mobility and help with that core training. Core training to the max is like the ultimate if you have any back pain. You know, and I don't mean sit-ups. I mean like Pilates style core training, yoga style core training. And of course, I am here to help. If you have any questions about any of those things and you want some help with that, please, that's my passion, y'all. That's what I do. I help heal people's physical bodies. And I can't, I did with my mom when she first moved in. That's what we did. We got her out of that freaking wheelchair and now she walks. So even at that stage, she was capable of getting to where she's at now. And my intention is to, she already goes to one yoga class twice a month with me. And my intention is to have one every week that she can attend. And she has physical therapy. I mean, we don't just give up around here just because she's got all this arthritis, just because she has all these issues. She'll never walk without a walker again, but that doesn't mean that we're done. Like, oh, put her in bed then. We're over it. No, she still gets exercise. She gets more exercise now than she has her whole life. So don't ever give up on this. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on the people who love you. And that's all I got to say about that right now. So the physical body, I've already talked too long. I didn't want to even go over 15 minutes. I love you guys. I will be back to talk about more of the bodies and how that relates back to the physical body. And again, please, if you have any questions, reach out. Namaste, my loves. Thank you so much. Mwah. I will see you soon. Bye.